The textbook case study that I chose to talk about for this chapter takes place in the state of Tennessee on May 17, 2004. It involves George Lane and his wife versus the state of Tennessee, as they are both paraplegics. They filed a lawsuit against the state of Tennessee that they were in violation of Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the ADA. He filed this because he was trying to go into the state court building to appeal a reckless driving ticket, and there was no elevator or a ramp for him to go up. Seeing how he was in a wheelchair, he had to climb up the steps for several hours, he stated. The court responded with that they were under protection of the 11th Amendment, and that the federal government has no jurisdiction over the state courthouse, so that this act does not affect them. Where they're wrong about this is that when Congress had put into action the ADA, there was a 11th Amendment immunity for matters just like this, stating that even though the 11th Amendment states that federal government has no say over state properties like courthouses and other areas like that, but since the ADA was so important to people with disabilities, and that they must always be represented and treated equally, that this had a immunity stating the state does not have immunity from this act. So because of this, this case made it all the way to the Supreme Court, where this was brought up, and that the state of Tennessee was responsible for creating ramps for the steps or an elevator so that handicapped people can have equal access to any government property. What we can learn from this is that firehouses and firefighters, being members of the community, often have meetings or events at the firehouse, and if these meetings are going to take place, that anywhere they could take place in needs to be accessible to everybody in the community and to all people. As leaders, this shows that we are accepting of everybody, no matter who they are, and that all are welcome on our property, no matter who you are, if you're disabled or not, that you're welcome and are able to visit our property to attend a meeting or any event that the firehouse is hosting. The newsletter case study that I decided to cover was about Philippe Marcial, a firefighter in Los Angeles County, California. This took place August 19th, 2022. The Court of Appeals found that the county had given into every request he requested on a 3-0 vote, after multiple requests being transferred to several different stations due to a number of reasons, those being sexual charged environments, non-separated sleeping and changing areas, or due to an injury he suffered that made him allow his urban search and rescue certificate to lapse, and he can no longer work at a USAR firehouse, which he was at but when he acquired his injury. The county adequately responded to all his transfer requests and all the complaints he made, and the only time that a transfer was denied was when that position was filled within recently, and there was a trade talked, but they denied the trade, this being allowed. Philippe claimed that he needed to have these transfers and or these accommodations because of stress and other factors, mostly stress relief. He sued the county for discrimination and retaliation, but he had no case, as every request he made was adequately responded to and given the proper accommodations that they could at the time, thus giving into everything he requested, given that he had a valid reason. What we learn from this is that he didn't have a case. The county did what they were supposed to, and sometimes you just can't make everybody happy in the firehouse, and that's okay. He did not explicitly explain that his injury was hindering him from doing his work, or that it added stress to an already stressful environment that he was in. The last case study I did took place March 13th, 2022, and it takes place in Denton, Texas, where firefighter Gary Wayland is an amputee who lost his leg in 2018 due to a complication after a surgery. Many people thought that his career was over after this amputation, but he did return to work, and he even competed on the television show American Ninja Warrior, where they go through high-intensity obstacle courses, proving that he was physically fit enough to do the firefighting job. What we can learn from this is that because the county or the city could not refuse to give him his job back as long as he was able to perform these duties, physically perform them, as long and with just his everyday living, which they use as an example when looking into this. Can you do your job? Can you just live properly, a proper quote-unquote normal life? This story shows us that he went out and did something that was very hard to do, showing that not only can he perform his duties, but he is physically fit and strong enough to compete in a television obstacle course show. One thing that I took away from this is that just because you get injured at one point doesn't mean that your career is completely over. You just have to work very hard to get back into it, and most anything is possible. I mean, he lost his leg and is still able to be a firefighter, and that's pretty amazing.